Medtech Manufacturing Capability Program. This is a grant from the Victorian Government and provides up to $500,000 of match funding to help manufacturers in the medtech space to build their capability and capacity and to scale up. So this one has a very tight closing date, 5th of April. So there's only 4 weeks to put this one in, and from the time of recording, there's only 3 weeks remaining. So you've got to be very quick on this one. So let's have a quick look at some of the details regarding this grant. Obviously, you need to be in Victoria, and you must have an eligible Medtech product. So you'll need to research the TGA, provides a link to the TGA about what a medical device is. Now, if you read between the lines on this one, if it's related to COVID or sovereign capability, that is going to rank higher. So anything that's currently made overseas or is not made in Australia, that's going to look good. And anything related to COVID, obviously it's quite topical, that's going to look quite good as well. Other things are you must be work cover, registered, 50 mil, have the matching cash. And they've provided a bit more detail around what a medtech device is or where you are at in terms of developing that product. So you've got to be at the proof of concept stage under that sort of measure that they've got there. So make sure that that is where you're at. Now, the other thing that I like to do is to have a look at the overall objectives. If you think about your project, how could you define it in one page, or what is the government going to announce about your project? So you've got to make sure that at the top level, this is what your project ticks off. Increases the capability and capacity of business to manufacture medtech products in Victoria and strengthen the value chain. So really taking anything away from overseas so we can make it in Australia. Anything that had supply issues during COVID, that would be a good thing to have a look at. Enable more Victoria manufactured medtech products to be generated and delivered, creating business growth. If you can obviously extend this overseas, if you can sell it overseas or export it, that's going to look even better. And then accelerate the development, clinical, regulatory approval of products of medtech and increase employment and revenue opportunities. So that is what we want to have a look at. Now I've got the application form here. Now it'd be nice if they allowed you to actually, have a PDF or a Word version that you can edit yourself rather than having to go through the whole thing and tick it off to have a look at it. So you've actually got to fill it out with blank information to actually get it. So I'll highlight some of the issues that you may come across here. You've got to make sure you've got your last 3 financial years available. And since we're in March, you'll need your interims up until December. Attest that the business will participate in the future program evaluation, of course. And you basically got to be ready to go. So you've got to choose your medical device, a medtech device or enabling medtech product, using additive manufacturing or 3D printing technologies on there, and that's the proof of concept area. So I've started to fill this out, and it's just with a bit of blank information at the moment, so I don't read too much into the answers that I have put in here. All right, so business name, of course, that's registered. Your work cover name, address, you can put all that info in there. So the closer you look to having your project ready to go, the better it's going to look. So, all right, so into the funding section, we're asking for $500,000 in this scenario. We're going to provide $500,000 also. If you can increase that to more than 50%, that's going to give you an extra area to be able to talk about the value for money created by this project. And you do all the necessary things that's required. Interesting, I haven't seen this before. The money must be in trust. That's probably a new thing that I haven't seen. It may have been recent, but you must put the money into a trust account and then refund anything that's unspent. Very interesting. They've obviously had issues in getting money back in the past. So here is your past 3 years of financials. Obviously year to date. If you can do closest to March, then that's going to look better as well. I've also got a financial model. If you look up my YouTube channel and you look up, I've got a financial model of how you actually project forward and back. And that just gives you more areas to talk about in your application. Okay, so if you can produce a little Excel spreadsheet that takes all these numbers, that's just going to make your job so much easier. Okay, so give us a project title. I always like to throw innovation in there, just because that's what they like, something like that, those sort of announceable things. Okay, so you don't have many words for your project description. Talk about some of the outcomes that you're going to deliver. If you can talk about jobs or revenue or export markets or bringing the new product to market or supply chain, I'd throw that in there. You've only got a limited time to complete this project as well. It's got to be done by 2023. So, and you've got to start it this year. So start it in June, because you've got, I think they awarded like the 23rd of May, something like that. So it's a very quick turnaround from them as well. So make sure you put some dates in there that meet the guidelines. Put in your FTE. Now, here we are, project delivery output in 3 months. And you may want to put this in your cash flow model. So often I have a cash flow model of all the expenses and when they're going to be expended by, just so you can tabulate all that and get that data easily. So we've got here 3 month output, 6 month output, 9 months, and then 12 months. So the more that's in a spreadsheet, the easier it is to change those numbers. If you go and throw in some extra costs here and there. But once again, look up YouTube and you should find my financial model. Okay, so here is the assessment criteria. So everything prior to this point is not assessed. And they'll give you weightings per section. So we've got 30% for this section, 30% for this one, and 20% and 20%. So the main thing that you need to tick off is this section here. And you want to say, clearly how the funding of activity will be used to scale up or develop the business to manufacture products in Victoria. So really it's about creating and making a product. If it's not something you already make, that's good, or not something made in Australia, that's going to look even better. The need for the product has been researched and identified. So in this instance, if you can show that there was whatever it was, the net volume purchased or imported to Australia, if you can find that number, the total market demand, something like that, either in volume or dollar term, that would be good. How well the market for the product has been identified and evidenced. So you might once again just show the import, and you're going to be having import replacement. And I would even go so far as to speak to customers or suppliers of your product. Well, obviously downstream, the wholesalers, distributors and customers for your product, to say, hey, yes, we would love to have this product available. They couldn't get it for whatever was, supply issues. Or only got limited quantities, so anything of that nature. So to use an obvious one, that'd be the RATs, the rapid antigen tests, face masks, shields. So they're the obvious COVID ones. So anything like that would be good. So the way I structure these is you can't actually put in headings. So I always put in introduction, so I can start right on camera, and it just helps break up things. So that, and then I would double space everything. So try to put in, capitalize all of that. Otherwise, when they print it off, it's just big slabs of text, and it's very hard to read. And then obviously break it up into those 3 sections. This makes it very easy for them to award marks to the assessment criteria. Okay, section 2. Potential to create employment and revenue opportunities in the medtech. So what this comes back to the financial model. So in my financial model, I will talk about the difference between having the project and not having the project, and work out what that value creation is in terms of, and it might be generally over 5 years. So this is what I'll create in 1 year, so what I'll create in terms of in 5 years for jobs and revenue and profit, and then what I'm going to do with that extra profit, that's going to be reinvested back into R&D, or taking around the world, things like that. So there we are, have outcomes. So anything you can measure is what you want there. So talk about volume, talk about dollars, potential for new clients or markets to be reached. So that's, once again, it's export or import, or at a minimum import replacement. Potential to result in new revenue, we've talked about that. At the conclusion of the project, so then it comes into the financial model. how much you're going to produce, year on year. New jobs generated, so talk about during the construction timeline, talk about after 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, is what I would put in there. If they're going to be full-time, part-time casuals, put that in there. I even go so far as to put in the titles and the remuneration for each employee, but that's sort of the extent that I go to for these sort of applications. Existing employees transition to a higher value, so always just go to a headcount. Often they say protecting. If someone's in manufacturing, manufacturing is going to be going overseas, so it's all about protecting jobs or keeping jobs in Australia rather than sending them overseas. So you might want to mention that as well. But then I'll also talk about the transition. So you want to take the low labour type work into a higher skilled. So talk about what sort of learning they're going to be doing. Are they going to be manually making something now? They're going to be working in machinery, or they're doing CAD, or 3D printing or scanning or additive manufacturing. So talk about what skills they're going to get, any credentials that they're going to get from TAFE or uni, even better. Long-term benefits to Victoria, so we're talking about sovereign capability here. Anyone else in the supply chain that's going to benefit from this, either upstream or downstream. And then we talked about, okay, so for over $200,000, so for the big ones, job creation, once again, list all the jobs that you're going to create, by when, the retention in the jobs, so you're not going to be sending your manufacturing overseas. Export revenue, I would even go so far as to talk about who you're going to supply to. If you can get letters of support from customers overseas or distributors that are demanding your product, then they're going to look good as well. Increase the capacity to service existing or new markets. So you may already be distributing to a current market and you're bringing in your second product or your medtech product. And then anything else for the medtech industry. So there's a little asterisk there. I'm not sure what that one is referring to, but normally in that instance, I would talk about how can you grow the whole medtech industry? How can they benefit or learn from what you're doing? Okay, so that was 30%. Now we're up to 20%. And these are things you can't really change too much. So your track record and experience in managing similar projects. So I would normally do a timeline of the last 5, maybe even 10 years. Talk about the dollar value in project and capital improvements in making a similar product or doing a similar project. Anything of the same sort of scale and size is going to look good. The project plan, scope, so how long is it going to take, where are you going to buy it from? I would put this in I think it's in the project plan, you've got to put in the time frame, the schedule in any way. What risks do you see in the project? There are always risks. Never say there are no risks to a project. Resources, so generally you're going to have all these resources in-house for the manufacturer. If not, you've got a contractor that you've worked with and they've built this before, they've installed the machinery. So you may have machinery supplier that you need to get some credentials from, or even a general contractor that does your project management, that does the work. And yeah, who are your suppliers? Regulatory or other approvals, make this not too big of a hurdle. If there's going to be a big hurdle, that's going to add risk. You don't want to have risk in your grant application. So make sure you readily address that. Business partnerships, service providers, you generally won't have had that time to get any of that. It's hard enough to get a grant application, let alone get all these other arrangements. So outline the need for government support, 20%. So what would happen if you didn't get the grant? What would you do? You may not go ahead with the project. You may send it overseas. You may downscale your whole production and move that overseas. So just look at some of the options of what happens if you don't get the money, and then how the grant will benefit in terms of scale and timing. So they're basically giving you the answer in there. So scale, it won't be as big. Timing, it won't be as quick. Pretty simple. So just answer that one. How does this grant impact the organisation's ability to be self-sustaining and competitive into the future? So they don't give money for operating costs. So this is only for CapEx. So you must be profitable now, or if not, how are you going to show profitability? They don't want to be suddenly giving money to a company that's going to be going out of business, either this year or in the coming years. It's not a good look for government to be wasting money like that. Does the funding create any additional activities for future use? You may share it with the university. You may do some sort of job skilling, TAFE, other sort of learning. That is what I'd add into that area there. Ignore the information I've put in there. It's just a bit of a filler because they're all mandatory areas. So now we've got to put in a project plan. So this is very common with the Victorian Government grants. So now we have the sections which are not part of the assessment criteria but are required. So I see now that they've got a 10-page maximum. I used to make them like 50 pages. So that's probably directed at me, that one. Once again, they ask for the same things over and over, and 10 pages isn't really a lot. So internal resources, that's basically CVs of the people. Any risks is a risk management plan. Put in a risk management plan. Project outcomes and impact for Victoria. They've already asked this, so why they ask this question again, I don't know. So you're just repeating what's already been in there. Summary. So this is a good one. So I do a full page of projections of the income from the project, costs, and the COGS and overhead costs. So I put in a full financial model on this one. Business impact statement. I don't even know what that means. This is going to benefit the company with dollars. These are questions I've been asked before. Okay, evidence of validity of the project, including the gate. So that's really the proof of concept side of it. No limit on how much, how big this document can be. So if you're in that area, you've obviously got to be done testing, validation, R&D. You might have some R&D reports. You might have some feasibility reports. Anything that validates that it works, I guess you want to put in that one. Because once again, you don't want to add risk to this grant application. So make this as big as possible to de-risk it, so they go, well, you know exactly what you're doing. You've done all the R&D, you've done all the tests. If we give you the money, you're going to go straight ahead and make it. That's where you need to be. Okay, evidence of co-contribution of funds. So sufficient funds, which includes written confirmation from the board or business owner. So just write a letter. They don't mention it here, but I often get the accountant in the federal grants, government grants, to ask for a letter. Look up that, or I've got a template that says your accountant. Also, it says you've got enough money. It's very similar to like a sophisticated investor letter. An approved loan facility, sufficient cash in the bank, management accounts demonstrating. So the riskiest one. So once again, you want to de-risk your grant application. So a loan facility, that may be hard to get it in this amount of time. Management accounts are risky because you may not have that income coming through. So the more you can say cash in the bank, confirmation from the board and your accountant are going to do much better. You don't actually need to use the cash that's in the bank. You can go and get a loan, but if you've got it, it de-risks everything. Okay, financial reports for the last 3 years, including interims. Did I mention that? No. Prepared the accountant with a director's report. Declaration should include the P&L, balance sheet, cash flows, and the accounts. And these are the interims that they're asking for. So make sure that's all nice and up to date. If you can prepare a nice financial model, because I often go back 10 years to show the growth per year, any analysis you've drawn from that, any commentary, why it's gone up, why it's gone down, because that doesn't come out in those, but that just helps understand what your business is up to. You may have done a lot of R&D. You may have sold off part of the business. You may have acquired a business. All those sort of things do help. For project-based applications, the company's financial projections. There we go. And that's what I normally provide anyway. That's not normally asked for, but that's what I've always put in. Did I say how many years? The next 3 financial years. Yep, put in the employees as well. Over the next 3 years. I don't know whether they've actually even asked for that, but put that in there as well. Quotations, including scopes of services, and then so requisite skills. So that's your general contractor, your project manager, your equipment supplier. Talk about how you've used them, hundreds of times before, that sort of thing. Any quotations or proposals that you've got, the more that it makes you look shovel ready, the better. So go and get one of those. It doesn't need to be binding, just to look good. You can go and change it later, so that's fine. Or even when you submit, you can, there's another 2 months or 3 months to actually go and finesse that, so that you've got in a proposal for a machinery for 200 grand, and you've gone and got the exact, because you're going to need to rush this sort of stuff through. So ask for that. Obviously take off a few grand and a few dollars to make it sound like a round number, and then you've got a few months to go and actually finesse that and get it right. So when they do give you the contract, you can make an order the next day, essentially. Okay, so addendum to the project plan, including return on investment analysis, 5 pages extra. Oh, there we are. So there's the job area, export revenue growth. So talk about the regions too. I'd probably break it up per region. Do they give you an avenue to talk about how you're going to get that? That might be worth putting somewhere. You say you're going to go to Asia or you're going to go wherever. How do we know that? It's good if you can tick that off somewhere. Increase capacity. You've added. Yeah, it's more that though. How can you prove the jobs? How can you prove the export? So look at if you're going to put on 100 jobs, what is that going to do in terms of the bottom line? So what's that? That's why I do the salary. So you can work out, okay, you're going to have $2 million profit in this year, but you're going to spend $3 million on job creation. It doesn't quite stack up. So make sure that stacks up. Letters of support. Don't bother getting ministers to sign. It's just a meaningless. You want to get customers. The more you can show that people want your product, the better. So do that. If you've got a supply to government, then you're not going to get anything. But the more you can show a letter from someone else that's actually going to buy it, the better. So that's my sort of review on the application. If you need help with it, just let me know.